And I said, look, you are asking me to do something that is counter to my oath when I swore to the Constitution to uphold it, and I also swore to the Constitution and the laws of the state of Arizona, and it is a tenet of my faith that the Constitution is divinely inspired of my most basic foundational beliefs. And so for me to do that because somebody just asked me to is foreign to my very being. I will not do it.
Arizona House Speaker Rusty Bowers, a Republican, spoke powerfully this week about why he couldn't go along with Trump's pressure campaign to overturn the vote in Arizona. Given what he said about his oath and the Constitution, you might think that Bowers would be done with Trump. Well, think again. Bowers told the Associated Press, quote, if Trump is the nominee, if he was up against Biden, I'd vote for him again. Bowers went on, simply because what he did the first time before COVID was so good for the country. In my view, it was great. Bowers faced threats and intimidation, all because he wouldn't go along with the big lie. And yet he'd still vote for Trump? Bowers isn't alone with this sentiment. At the same hearing on Tuesday, Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger talked about getting threats and even explicit calls to his wife. But as he told Mehdi last fall, he hasn't ruled out backing Trump again.
If Donald Trump is the candidate, you told me at the start of the interview, you're a Republican, you're a conservative. Are you going to vote for this guy?
That's so far in the future. Haven't even thought about that. I got to get reelected next year.
You're not ruling it out, which is astonishing to me.
What does it say about our country that one party can employ such cognitive dissonance that they can actually and fully recognize Trump's threat to democracy and still be open to backing him again? Let's bring back our panel, Juanita Tolliver, veteran political strategist and MSNBC political analyst, as well as Joe Walsh, my man, former Republican congressman from Illinois. Joe,
Michael.
I don't help us. Seriously, help us understand this, dude. I mean, how do you say what Rusty said, all right, and still say the next breath, yeah, but I'd vote for Donald Trump again after everything he did to undermine our democracy?
I want to scream, Michael. I don't know what this says about the country, but I know what this says about the Republican Party. It's done. It's irredeemable. It can never be fixed. It can never be changed. It can never be saved. Here you've got a principled dude who said one day, he said, Donald Trump illegally pressured me to overturn the election. Then the next day he said, I will get down on my knees and vote for that man again. Michael, he's not alone. A good, decent senator who I served with, Tim Scott from South Carolina, knows. Let's say this again, Michael. Tim Scott knows Donald Trump is unfit. But 2 days ago, Tim Scott said, of course I'll vote for him again. They're done.
He sure did.
I got nothing left.
So Juanita, it's not just Rusty, as Joe just mentioned. It's Tim Scott and so many other Republicans condemned Trump's efforts to overturn the election, but still won't rule him out in 2024. How do you reconcile this? And then more broadly, how are Democrats reconciling these things?
Look, I'm less energized about this as Joe because I'm not shocked at all, Michael, right? These people, as principled as they appear, still liked every single one of Trump's harmful, divisive, racist policies. They were down for the cause. They just wanted him to win fair and square. That's what we're getting from Rusty Bowers. He's like, can you just follow the rules and win, please? Because I really like you. That's the message from Rusty Bowers. And that's not shocking to me because we know that Trump, literally feeds into and feeds the energy of people who fit Rusty's profile, older, white, cis, hetero men, right? So when you fit that profile and you fall in line behind Trump, you're not going to let go of that. Now, when you talk about Tim Scott, I feel like that's a little bit more nefarious because let's be real, goes against a whole lot of things things that Tim should believe in as the sole Black Republican in the U.S. Senate. But the reality is he knows that Trump still is running the show down in South Carolina. Tim Scott can't win if he alienates Trump. He knows that. And so it's fully political there. And he's willing to do whatever needs to be done to preserve power, because at the end of the day, this entire coup attempt, everybody's still falling in line behind Trump. McCarthy going to kiss Trump's ring days after January 6th to make sure that he can get the speakership if the Republicans take back the House is all about preserving power. It's about staying in power for these folks, and they're going to do whatever it takes, even if it means going down and burning up our democracy right beside somebody like Trump.
So, Joe, let's break this down a little bit further, because here's the rub for me. What I hear when I listen to, Bowers and Scott and others say what they say, does it come down to this idea that Democrats and Biden are so dangerous to the country? They are a greater danger than what Trump did. Is that what this boils down to, that they look at Democrats and their policies is much more dangerous than the idea and the actions of taking down our government?
Michael, they use that as an excuse and a rationalization. And I've had so many of them, as I know you have, over the last 4 years, tell me privately, Joe, I believe everything you say publicly about Trump, but they can't say it publicly because the Democrats are evil, they'll tell me. More importantly, Michael, when he is right, it's about power. This is where this party is right now. And if you want to be a viable part of this party, you have to embrace it all. And you have to embrace the cult leader, even if you privately don't like him. They don't want to lose their position. And Michael, you and I know a lot of Republicans who are still hiding under the bed, just waiting for Trump to go away. They're even more despicable.
That bed is awfully crowded under there, too. So, Anita, are you concerned, and should Democrats be concerned, that voters out there are thinking the same way that Joe and I just pointed out? You've got Bowers and these guys saying, what Trump did was despicable, but how do you plan for that in the upcoming elections? What impact do you think that may have on the outcome of these elections if voters are willing to give a pass effectively just because inflation is high or gas prices are high?
Look, two things that I come back to, Michael, is remember that independent voters exist and appeal to them en masse. I think that's one of the signals that independent voters are saying that they're not going to let go of January 6th came from a recent ABC Ipsos poll where 60% of independents said Trump should be charged with a crime for January 6th. He is not someone who is fit to serve in office, right? Like, that is a big signal for Democrats to continue to reach out to those independent voters. I think the other thing Democrats need to do is constantly paint a picture of the alternative. Republicans in the House and in the Senate have been absolutely clear about what they're going to do. Fraud impeachment hearings, fraud investigations, anything they can do to thwart the Biden administration, that's going to be their agenda. Meanwhile, you also have Republicans at present trying to pivot the conversation to inflation and rising costs in gasoline, but they're voting against every single provision that would lower costs. They voted against any type of legislation to prevent and combat price gouging by big oil corporations. They voted against paid family leave. They voted against lowering prescription drug prices. They voted against extending the child care tax credit. Democrats need to tell people that, emphasize that, and remind them of what's to come if they do not maintain the House and maintain the Senate in the midterm.